Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, five-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Ellen. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest today from the state of New York is Debra M. Roberts, with a whole bunch of initials after her name. You'll have to tell me what that is in just a moment. What we're talking about is the relationship protocol, how to talk, diffuse, and build healthier relationships, not only personally, but professionally. And so, Debra, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So what's LCSW for those curious minds?
Well, all of those initials, they're not fancy. It's for Licensed Clinical Social Worker.
Nice. Perfect. So how did you get into, and you've been a social worker for a long time, right, before the book?
Oh, certainly. I worked in many nonprofit organizations right out of graduate school. I worked with troubled teenagers, runaways, juvenile delinquents. I worked in a health organization, mental health agency.
Wow.
Poverty legal services. I really had my hand, as I say, in the trenches for a long time, for many. I loved it.
Well, and to have your hands in the trenches like that, which is very well put. My wife is a public health nurse, and so she goes door to door and treats newborn babies and moms on Medicaid. And so she has, I understand the trench concept pretty well. It's quite a gift that you have to have been able to do that for so long. And were those some of the aha moments that said, people need to communicate better than they know how? How did that come about?
Looking back on it, absolutely. But while I was working in those environments, I was just doing what needed to be done in that moment. And ultimately, it did become the aha moment of, when you get a phone call because there's an emergency of a young person who wants to hurt themselves, or people that just are in an emergency situation or looking to get along better, that if I can just get them to talk to me or to each other or to explain their feelings without acting them out, we have a whole different conversation going on.
Absolutely.
And so I did a lot of crisis intervention, which I think became the cornerstone of realizing that learning how to quickly develop trust and teach people how to communicate in a practical way that makes sense to them. Nothing's too fancy, but just to be able to express what's going on for them so that they can get to the other side of whatever they're struggling with.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I also grew up in a house where my mother really believed that your actions are what mattered. She was very much into that your words and your actions were in sync. And that's how she would always talk about my father.
Wow.
She said, he's not someone who loves to talk a lot, although he talked to me. Mm-hmm. But she would say, he's a good person who loves our family, and he's someone who he does what he says he's going to do. And what more can you ask for?
What more can you ask for? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you're in the trenches like that, you have to, it must be, I'm going to assume here, which probably isn't fair, but I'm going to assume that you were already born with a gift of listening. You have to be just an amazing listener to be able to deal with all these people, situations in the trenches, and be able to come back quickly with a meaningful response.
That's an interesting point. I would think that you can teach this kind of work to a point, but you would have to have some natural ability to relate to people and connect with people.
Yeah.
Certainly. And a desire to do so. I think the desire is as important.
That's well said. Yeah, it really is.
You have to care and you have to want it.
Well, yeah, because you want your attention and your focus on what's important ahead of you and not what's important about you.
Right. And also, one of the things that I teach a lot is that I want to increase people's awareness. So I want you to be able to be in the moment, but also observing the moment while you're in it. So when you're doing that kind of work that I did, you had to embrace what was happening in front of you, but also pay attention to the environment that this person was in so that you could have that practical component. Sort of, I always say, like the light shining into the darkness, and that's
There
how
you
you
go.
can help guide them.
Yeah. And the
Does
other
that make
part,
sense?
makes perfect sense. And I think the other
Good.
part of that, and you alluded to it briefly, is you have to have enough credibility and integrity and authenticity in yourself to be able to get those people's attention so they're willing to trust you over a short period of time, right?
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of people out there going, oh, man, I'm so lost. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Oh, well, hi, Debra Roberts. You know? I mean, that's a bit of a simplification, but I think there's some truth to that. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that.
Well, to move it forward, I don't know if you want to go there yet.
Sure.
So this relationship protocol model evolved from working with relationships in my private practice for over 20 years. And just as you said, people would walk into my office completely confused, unhappy, stuck. And it could be two business partners or romantic relationship, people thinking of getting married, or siblings. I had people in my office who were estranged for years and years, and here they were appearing before me willing to try to see if they could connect all the time. And so, but it's always the common thread for me. I don't intimidate with whatever's in front of me as long as I have two people sitting there who want to make it better.
There you go.
Who have that desire, like I was saying before. And if I can help them to feel comfortable with each other, that's the start. So then I have a commitment that they want to do the work, and I have a desire to make things better because either this person is important to me because they're my spouse, or we have a business together, or we have children together, whatever it is. And that's the essence of what that becomes the driver to get them to go to the next level.
Absolutely. And desire doesn't have to be as hard and as complicated as it may sound to people, right? It's just, I'm going to put my toe in the water here because I desire to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, I believe that, and step one of the relationship protocol model is, I want to get along with you. I don't want to fight with you. I want to be closer to you.
Yeah.
And people can start a conversation using those sentences, anything that's relevant to them.
Mm-hmm.
But the I want to get along with you is such a powerful statement, because that just by saying that to another person, look, I don't know how we're going to get to the other side of this. We are in such a difficult spot right now, but I want that to happen is injecting hope. And that's just maybe a glimmer, but right there, that's how my goal is always to help people see that movement is possible. And it starts small, but that little thread of hope just, injects a lot of motivation. And that's what helps people to propel them to keep doing the work. And that's why I wrote the book.
Fascinating.
It's just not that complicated. I'm a very simple person.
Well, and that's good. I mean, and I mean simple in communication, simple in a way to relate to people, simple to say, I want to inject, and really at the end of the day, aren't we all looking for hope in some way, shape, or form? And you give them a sentence to help them start that.
100%, to be able to get along and feel comfortable with each other. And language, I try to say that if you don't address things and you keep them inside, you have this bucket that keeps filling up, and either it's going to crash, or you're going to blow, or you're going to shut down, but something's going to happen that's not going to be pretty.
That's one of the first things that my wife and I agreed on when we first got married. We went to a premarital class, and the main thing was, because we had been pretty good stuffers for a long time, each of us individually. And we both knew, because of the work that we had done individually, that if we were going to bring that stuffing aspect to the marriage, we were going to be in trouble. So we agreed to that from the very beginning, which was wonderful for us. And the other thing that I picked up and never forgot from the premarital class, like you were saying, I want to help. Conversely, you need to help. comes out more accusatory, right, than being helpful. So I couldn't agree with you more. The choice of words and the delivery is just critical.
Another important thing or helpful sentence is, or way of looking at everything, is giving the other person the benefit of the doubt.
There you go. Yeah.
So if what happened between you and your wife was you trusted each other and you gave each other the benefit of the doubt that you were going to do the best you could to be better communicators.
Yep.
And right there, that whole perspective opens so much of a horizon that is shut off.
Oh, yeah.
People.
I mean, it changed
that's a big piece, too.
Yeah, it changed our relationship, I'm sure, more than we realized, because it was important to each of us. So, relationship protocol, how to talk, diffuse, build healthier relationships, personal relationships for sure, business relationships for sure. I mean, any kind of relationship really is all about communication and trust, right?
Absolutely. This has been applied in all types of relationships, in all types of settings, and because we're talking about people.
Yeah.
And at the core, it doesn't matter if you're the principal of a school, a doctor in a hospital, a CEO, or a family.
Yeah.
It's the same way of relating, teaching people how to resolve conflicts simply and quickly, that they don't have to be so difficult or drag you down so long and so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've heard about growing up, and I'm sure it's semantics with the way other people look at it, but I look at old tapes that come to surface, right? Things that I was told when I was a kid. I didn't believe it, but I guess I do. And so I bring stuff into the relationship that really isn't fair to the other person because they don't know about it. It's some kind of an emotional trigger, as you refer to it. It just kind of makes me go, wonder where that came from.
Right. Yeah, well, then you have more awareness than most, because oftentimes people are in the throes of it and they don't realize why they're having such a strong reaction.
Yeah.
But it does often come from messaging that we got when we were younger, or experiences that we had, or cultural beliefs or values. But usually they're old, or a belief about ourselves or other people. And when you're having a conversation, what I like to say is, if you were in front of me, I would show you with my hands how I...
Sure. I can see. Go.
I thought you could. How things ratchet up is what I describe about how if we're having a conversation and I say something to you and your reaction is not what I expected, but you jump up a notch. My job in that moment is to say, wait a minute, what did I just say that made you get so upset?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to catch it right there and give you an opportunity to be self-reflective and say, well, I didn't like the way you spoke to me, or whatever you said really ticked me off, or, whatever it is. But that requires that both people are willing to, as I say, hit the pause button and think.
We hope you've enjoyed part 1 of our conversation with Debra Roberts.
Listen to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/your20minute podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.